Hello everyone, how's Karen and the kids? How's Jennifer doing at Yale? Today we're going to be talking about Sam Collins, a trans influencer who just plagues YouTube with horrendously bad takes. This was a video requested by one of my subscribers, and before we proceed, I have realized in thinking about what to say in this video that I've come across quite the conundrum. How do I balance fact with civility in this situation? Should I just call Sam a guy because of appearance and the farce that is gender identity, or should I call the biological female a woman?
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
Unfortunately, we live in a world where being logical isn't exactly being civil, and being caring of someone now means feeding into their delusions. On the other hand, one can make the case that it shouldn't matter that much, as it's a very simple change in speech, and it's even easier because she does look like a guy, but the real problem I have is the principle behind it. You know what, Sam? I'm not misgendering you, you're misgendering yourself. I will be referring to you as a she, not to be dehumanizing or demeaning towards you, rather to speak factually on what you are. Anyways, now that that's out of the way, let's get on with what she says about, well, I guess... Okay. First, let's start with the dreaded topic that nobody can seem to avoid, including me, Dylan Mulvaney. So if you've been living under a rock and have no idea what I'm talking about, allow me to give you some exposition. Dylan Mulvaney was sort of a failed actor as a guy, and then he blew up in popularity out of nowhere because he transitioned to a girl. Not a woman, a girl. So people got offended because he acted like a stereotypical girl, and people also found it weird that he identified as a girl and not an adult female. So Dylan gets invited to the White House for literally no reason whatsoever.
Thank you. Thank you. And it feels like Republicans have turned trans and non-binary people into this thing to blame society's downfall on in some ways. And this narrative is not only dangerous to our mental health, but also our physical safety. And particularly trans women of color are being murdered at an alarming rate.
More than any other group of people.
Thank you.
And Ben Shapiro made a video about it. Now, I don't exactly think Ben's just the greatest human of all time and every word he utters should be held on to and lived by, but I think he hit the nail on the head with this video that Sam Collins reacts to. But Sammy and this other girl she's with just don't really attempt to make any real points. I would recite each example for you guys, but I don't hate myself that much, so instead I'll just play some clips.
To Dylan Mulvaney going to the White House. So, there's a person I'd never heard of until about a week ago named Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney is a man. Dylan Mulvaney was a star on Broadway of Book of Mormon, which is a very anti-religious musical that was done by Matt Stone and Trey Parker, the South Park guys. And Dylan Mulvaney was apparently a talented enough singer-actor to actually be in that show on Broadway. And about 3/4 of a year ago, Dylan Mulvaney decided that Dylan Mulvaney was a woman. Now, this had followed on Dylan Mulvaney jumping online at the beginning of COVID and spending a couple of years building up a following.
Gotta play a game. Take a shot every time Ben Shapiro says Dylan Mulvaney. It's been like 4 times.
Yeah, he said her name so many times.
If you could tell, Ben was actively trying not to use a pronoun in reference to Dylan. This is probably because he's put in the conundrum I described earlier in the video, where he's trying to strike a balance between civility and reality. In other words, even though he knows what he believes to be true is valid, and he understands biological facts, he's still not trying to be disrespectful to anybody or hurt anybody or offend anybody.
And let's be real about this. What this is this is a man who is cosplaying as a woman. Actually, he's cosplaying as a young girl is what he's actually doing. Because his characterization of women is sexist, ridiculous, stereotypical, and disordered.
Wait, have you ever seen any of Dylan's stuff?
Yeah, I follow Dylan. I love this idea of it's being stereotypical, it's being, it's making fun of women. Isn't his whole thing is to be, a traditional wife, a traditional woman? Is that not a stereotypical woman? Aren't we encouraging femininity? What's going on here?
Ben Shapiro preaches about that stuff. He says women should be whatever specific way. So, that's very interesting. Nice double standard there. Ben Shapiro.
Okay, obviously you've never heard literally any time Ben Shapiro talks about his wife, who is a doctor.
Hey folks, I had more important things to take care of. I'm actually a doctor. She's a doctor, folks. His wife's a doctor, folks. She's a doctor. My wife's a doctor.
Ben doesn't really preach go to the kitchen and make me a sandwich. His main argument is just that men and women generally are different, and that the disparities you see in the workplace reflect that. Women generally do take more time off of work, because they have kids and things like that. They do attempt to obtain different jobs than men, sometimes lower paying jobs, and for that they will generally make less money. Doesn't mean women are facing mass discrimination in the workplace, nor does it mean that they work not as hard. But anyways, yes, Ben just argues that feminism wants to destroy what makes men and women unique, no matter how unhappy it makes both of them. Let's be honest, there must be a difference between men and women in order for you to want to change your alleged gender identity. The only thing we disagree on is how they differ. To suggest that a role in a household is considered a stereotype is no more than me saying the occupation of an electrician or lawyer is a stereotype. Being a housewife is an occupation, not necessarily a personality trait. Ben also says that generally speaking, women tend to have more emotional intelligence than men, which would make them intrinsically better suited for nurturing children and such. That is in stark contrast to what Dylan does, which is what you'd call stereotypical woman behavior. The negative stereotypes. The whole being an emotional jerk that thinks people can read their minds, and being passive-aggressive. That, my friend, should not be accepted as average female behavior. That should be considered being a decent human being.
Portrayal of women is very childish and stereotypical and sexist because she's portraying women in a make-believe way, like she's making fun of women.
I literally never picked that up. I've watched so many of her TikToks.
It's just because she's having fun. I think people have an issue because she calls herself a girl and not a woman, and I think that might be what he's getting at. But then a lot of people, point out the thing of she never got to experience being a girl, right?
Yeah, and it's just not even that big of a deal. It's sometimes I call myself boy.
It really doesn't matter at all. It's making a mountain out of a molehill, right? I think that's the saying.
Notice that he changed his entire personality after identifying as a girl. He acted as all of the negative stereotypes of women do. The problem everyone has with Dylan is that he exaggerates everything and...
Wait, why is this war arguing about? Seriously, did American society really get this stupid to where we are debating immigration, welfare, the mental health for youth, but instead about a man who wants to be a woman?
Dylan never got to experience being a girl because Dylan is a guy. However, that is not an excuse for age regression in trying to redo a childhood in order to grow up as a girl and then become a woman, because let's face it, you are still not a woman. Gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia both overlap in terms of symptoms quite a bit, and considering the fact that BDD seems to happen to a lot of adolescents, it could be entirely possible that they get confused, and with the society mostly ignoring body dysmorphia in favor of celebrating a mental illness, people may think they have gender dysphoria because they check some of those boxes. However, in Dylan's case, it seems like a huge publicity stunt that he's trying to pull off rather than actually suffering from gender dysphoria, or what he thinks is gender dysphoria. What I have seen as well is people inspired by Dylan to become trans, which suggests that this is a social contagion. My theory is that when Dylan saw how much attention and fame other trans people got, he decided to become trans because he looks at others and sees positive results. Since Dylan then gets instant gratification via money and going viral, young onlookers decide to try to do the same. It is also pretty obvious that Dylan has tendencies that make it look like he wants to be the star of the show, as seen with how he acts pre-transition as well.
99. It's pretty fancy. It is... Yes! You got it! Dylan's a winner! Dylan's a winner! Dylan, nice job, man. Look at that. We're going to spin the wheel right after this. Don't go away, folks.
And about the girl thing, to suggest that it is simply a difference in language is absurd because ignoring the problems with transgenderism, you know very well, Sam, that calling yourself a boy as a synonym for man is not nearly the same as calling yourself a little girl and identifying as a girl rather than an adult woman.
As something good, because what this is really about is not about building anything up. What this is really about is tearing everything down. Right? There's no such thing as a man. There's no such thing as a woman. A man can be a girl can be a boy. And anybody who says differently is a bigot. All institutions that fundamentally undergird human reproduction or the family structure, those must be torn away. The left made the claim in the 1960s that the personal is political. When it comes to this stuff, the personal is very, very political. And pretending that this does not have a political aspect is, of course, incredibly silly.
Wait, how does being transgender have a political aspect?
Yeah, I love that they try to like completely just politicize just like existing. It's not a political statement.
It's not, yeah. That's the only reason I transitioned, actually.
It's so funny too because like they'll support like conservative trans people, right? They're like, that's fine, that's okay. See, they're like chill, they're okay because they're not supporting the like pushing of the agenda or whatever. But by just accepting and acknowledging that there are conservative trans people, you're therefore just taking away the idea that being trans is a leftist statement.
I feel like Ben Shapiro would be okay with somebody he accepts as seeing trans, like whatever.
You mean because they aren't supporting a warped reality? Blair White and other conservative trans people accept the fact that biologically speaking, no matter how much they will it, they will never truly change their sex. They understand that sex is determined by chromosomes and not by your feelings. Ben is not calling the mere existence of trans people political, but you already knew that, and you think you can somehow own the right-wingers by saying this. Ben is simply saying that pushing all of this and making it this huge deal is political. I mean, Nolan got to go to the White House for no other reason but him identifying as a girl. Also, to completely ignore the fact that the Overton window has shifted is absolutely absurd, because being transgender was most certainly on the left wing, because it's body mutilation, and it's shifting reality to your every whim. It's a subjective truth. But because of the radical left, it has become more and more accepted as reality, which would give the appearance of trans people becoming more conservative when it's only that leftists are becoming more extreme.
They disagree with him, then their entire existence is bad.
Oh, you say entire existence. Is that to say that your entire existence is based off of your LGBTQ status? Because if that is true, then yes, I'd say your existence is pretty asinine to society based solely on that premise, and here are a few reasons why. Since that ideology submits to an idea of a subjective truth and tells its followers that they can make their own reality, it only leads to the conclusion that for all intents and purposes, each follower has, at least at their own mind, become their own god. They make their own rules and base what they perceive as reality on their own desires, and woe to those who disagree. Since they make their own rules, their morality is solely based on their desires as well. All of this is to say that the Lima Golf Bravo Tango group's whole function in society is simply to tear it down. If you embrace this idea of everyone having their own rules for society, there's no more society as nothing ties anyone together. This is especially true when it comes to the hierarchy of oppression known as intersectionality, where there is no more unity unless you look exactly like someone. However, if your affiliation with the Lima Golf Bravo Tango doesn't dictate your life and you don't follow it like a religion, although I disagree with you, I don't think your existence is inherently bad. Only your ideological philosophy.
Copyright music over this, but anyways, Dylan said, day one of being a girl, I cried 3 times. I wrote a scathing email that I did not send. I ordered dresses online that I could not afford, and then when someone asked me how I was, I said I was fine when I wasn't fine. So, how did I do, ladies? That's what she said.
Okay, so I have a question. Are women feeling emboldened by this, strengthened by this? Or do you feel insulted by this, as you should? A man saying that day one of being a woman involves crying 3 times, ordering dresses you can't afford, and telling people that you are fine when you're not fine. Right? If Bill Burr made that joke about women, he would be called a sexist. But Dylan Mulvaney is cosplaying at being a woman, and therefore we have to pretend that he is, in fact, a woman. Like day one, we have to pretend that he is a woman. Literally the day that he announces that he's a girl, we have to pretend that he is now a girl.
See, I feel like she nailed it.
I didn't see anything wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. She nailed it. That's exactly every day.
Is it? Nice. Nice.
Yeah, I love that he's like, you should be insulted. Why? Most of those were just like normal everyday things that like everyone experiences regardless of gender identity. That's just
mental illness, innit?
Do you need a hug, ma'am? Because crying 3 times a day and constantly ordering things you can't afford is probably not a great sign of mental health. Upon analyzing what was said, the only way women could agree with this is if they were somehow mentally unhealthy. This is stereotypical behavior that shows signs of mental instability, and it seems that Dylan is trying his hardest to mimic what he sees in women rather than being himself, which begs the question of why he identifies as a girl if he has to put so much effort into keeping up with it. It's not just him living his life, because if that was true, he wouldn't have recorded all of this and he wouldn't have felt compelled to act girly. That's a really stupid argument. Funny enough, I got to see this gem of a video where Dylan all of a sudden doesn't act all hyper feminine and even calls himself an adult. I find it absolutely hilarious that he pretends that this facade of girlhood is really his identity and that people actually buy it. I noticed how the guy didn't wear any over-the-top makeup, spoke like an actual adult, and didn't act like a puppy who just got a treat from defecating outside instead of in the house.
It's day 9,610 of being a human, and I'm gonna try to leave gender out of this since that's how we found ourselves here.
Fly.
I've been offline for a few weeks, and a lot has been said about me, some of which is so far from my truth that I was like hearing my name and I didn't even know who they were talking about sometimes. It's a very disassociative feeling. And it was so loud that I didn't even feel part of the conversation. So I decided to take the back seat and just let them tucker themselves out. But then I remembered that nearly 13 million people at some point enjoyed me enough to hit the follow button on these apps. And I was like, wait. I want to talk to those people. So hi, long time no talk. How are you? You might want to grab a beverage. This is going to be a longer one. Crazy deja vu because I'm an adult, I'm 26, and throughout childhood, I was called too feminine and over the top. I'm an adult, I'm 26, and throughout childhood, I was called too feminine and over the top.
Huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
Mulvaney is a dude, and you can see this. Okay, Dylan Mulvaney, one of the videos that Dylan Mulvaney has on his TikTok page is a video of himself singing. Got a very nice voice, by the way. Singing as a dude, and then cosplaying as a woman. And then at the very end of the video, you will actually hear Dylan Mulvaney dressed as a woman singing the way that he used to because, again, he is a he, and nothing has changed other than the makeup and the garb and the hair.
Personally, I've never met that boy. Seems like a really sweet kid, but I don't know who that is. You raise me up.
Okay, that is Dylan Mulvaney dressed as a girl saying, I don't know who that is. And then Dylan Mulvaney, close up, singing the same song, same voice, right? Nothing has changed, but we're all supposed to pretend something has changed because it's about tearing down institutions, about tearing down male, female. It's about tearing down reality and factual basis for reality.
I don't know why I think it's really funny that Ben Shapiro can sing. I think it's one of the funniest things.
It is kind of funny. He doesn't look like someone who can sing, you know?
No, I would never, ever in a million years think he could.
I was just gonna say, like, I love that he's like, nothing has changed. You can clearly see that she is so much more confident now as well. Like, that was very, very evident.
So much more confident, huh?
Yes! You got it! Dylan's a winner! Dylan's a winner!
Dylan has been like this since before he transitioned, and to suggest there was some sort of boost in confidence here is being blatantly oblivious, and I don't really appreciate the willful ignorance.
It's very evident that things have changed. Obviously, when you first start your transition, your voice and stuff, it takes a while for it to change, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine. It's not a secret. She's sharing her transition journey.
Leave it, let people wear what they want to wear. It, like, doesn't matter. It genuinely just doesn't matter.
Letting people wear what they want to wear. Interesting that we feed into mental illness like this. If you didn't know, gender dysphoria is a mental illness that can lead to depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. Letting this happen is like letting a girl with anorexia think it's super healthy to be severely underweight. It's incredibly neglectful and detrimental to not only that person, but also society as a whole. Even ignoring the sentiment of letting people wear what they want to wear, the major problem is that you're not just accepting people as people, you are celebrating them and creating a separate culture for these people.
Insulting every institution that exists in not only the West, but all over the world. So, for example, here's Dylan Mulvaney talking about being a bride. This is a man talking about being a bride.
Here comes the bride. 54 being a girl, and I grew up as a gay kid, not even thinking that I could get married, let alone being a bride. So here are the rules for my hypothetical wedding. Whoever I'm marrying, whether it be a man, a woman, a non-binary person, I am going to be the last one to walk down the aisle. And I hope that doesn't
Okay, fine. So it's just amazing. You can't be a bride. You're a man. I'm sorry to break it to you. You cannot be a bride. You're a man. Because the definition of bride includes woman in the definition of bride.
Why does it matter what somebody's doing at their own wedding and what they wear? Because you can have two people wearing tuxes. You can have two people wearing dresses. Or it's not even either of those things, actually.
Whatever, it's your wedding. It doesn't matter. And use whatever, like, why can't you use bride or groom or whatever? Like, come up with your own word. They're words. It's like, they're literally just words.
No, actually, you can't be a bride because the word says here, blah, 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 blah. Shut up.
Who cares? It's a word. Do these people realize that, like, as time evolves, words adapt and their meaning evolves and adapts to the society we live in? Words mean different things every day. That's just the way that's how language works.
Oh, looky, a stupid argument. Words evolving can't be the go-to argument for every single little thing, because language does not just change overnight, ladies and gentlemen. Just because you want bride to mean anybody who's getting married, doesn't mean that the definition is automatically changed just for you. Again, here we are with your delusions and thinking that you can alter reality in your favor. You know what? I think we're done here for now. Hope you all enjoyed whatever this is. Hope you're happy, Doc. I had to listen to this 5 times now to make a detailed response, and now I gotta listen to it all over again to edit. Anyways, last thing. You guys remember Sergio, right? The guy that voiced part-time Buggy in my first video covering him?
Hey guys, I just found this crazy new streamer, and what he's done is absolutely crazy. I cannot believe it, guys. Look, this guy is literally the pinnacle of sin. Literally the pinnacle of sin. Like, come on, dude.
Well, he and I are working on a project that I teased just a little bit on a few outros, but it should be all set in about 2 weeks. Don't want to spoil too much just in case it turns out to be awful, because it'll be my first time actively participating in something like this besides the writing part. But just be on the lookout, I guess, and if you guys have any compliments, complaints, or suggestions, please let me know in the comments. Though, if you want me to take your complaints to heart, please articulate them thoroughly, otherwise I'm probably just going to ignore them. And be specific, too. Instead of saying, "You're bad," just be like, "Hey, your mic is trash." But anyways, that's all. Goodbye.